Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the pod. This is Hot Route Takes. I am your host, Brian Sarver. I'm joined with my co-host, Christian Mills. Today's topic at hand is picking an NFL team that missed the playoffs in 2022 that we think could make a big jump in 23. And we are playing GM. We're talking free agency. We're talking draft picks, cap, re-signing expiring contracts.
I am your co-host, Christian Mills. I thought long and hard about which team I'd want to be the GM of that just missed the playoffs. And one team that kind of stood out to me the most is the Washington Commanders. But a lot of the chaos going on over there, I would like to take it over and maybe see what I can work with and change some things that I think would let them take that next step going into the next season.
All right, and I chose the Detroit Lions. And I have a little bit of an affinity for the Detroit Lions. I think that they are an up-and-coming franchise, and I do think that they have a lot of good young players established and in place. And I thought it was, a gimme when we thought up this pod idea. I had to go with the Lions. And I'm going to start off kind of mentioning the cap space that they have with the players they already have on the roster. They are scheduled to have $16 million cap with 18 expiring contracts. Majority of those guys are bottom roster level players, but however, I do think they got to bring back guard Evan Brown. I think when he got inserted into the lineup, there was stability and they were able to continue doing what they do, and that's run the ball the Dan Campbell way, biting kneecaps and such. But yeah, I think they should bring it back Evan Brown. I'm not exactly sure the contract that he will get. Spot Track had his market value listed at 3 years, $30 million. I wouldn't think it'd be that high, considering the limited experience he has. But I have him on the books for $10 million. Another player I thought they needed to bring back was Deshaun Elliott, safety. I thought he played well at times this year. I think they desperately need secondary help, so I think they need to bring at least one of these guys back in the secondary. They do have Tracy Walker. They do have Kelvin Joseph. I think they go ahead and just bring back this third safety and maybe spend some draft capital on the corner room. They also have 2 corners expiring this year, and they're probably going to enter free agency. Another player I had them bringing back was running back Jamal Williams. And, Jamal Williams, led the league in rushing touchdowns this year and kind of took the role as the lead back with DeAndre Swift getting banged up again this year. And I don't think going forward you can really put your eggs in that basket for DeAndre Swift. He's got to prove he can stay on the field. And Jamal Williams is an excellent kind of like backup player, if not lead role star player for their offense. And I also had some cut candidates. I definitely think they need to get rid of some of these guys to clear up some cap space. Michael Brockers, he was pretty much a non-factor this year for them, and they can cut him and not have any dead cap and save $10 million. I think that's a no-brainer. I think it's going to happen. Also, Romeo Okwara, he was the second lowest PFF graded player on their defense, and he is easily a cut candidate. You can cut him and save $7.5 million against the cap. And then another one, Charles Harris. He can go, man. He struggled since he's been in the league, really, former first round pick for the Miami Dolphins. He's bounced around the league a little bit. He kind of found a home in Detroit. But I think now that Detroit is taking that next step as a franchise, it's time to let some of those guys go and fill them with star players. You already got Aiden Hutchinson. There's other players coming in the draft and free agency you can pair with him, and you could really have a nasty D-line. So after expiring contracts and re-signing some of those guys, cutting some of these dead weight players, they had $14 million in cap space. However, the cap rose $20 million this year, so they have $34 million in cap space. However, with the draft picks that they have a good bit of draft capital this year, having 2 first-round picks, one at pick 6, one at pick 18, 2 second-round picks, pick 48 and pick 59, a third-round pick, a fifth-round pick, and 2 sixth-round picks. They have a lot of draft capital, and it's going to take a little more than $10 million just to sign the players in the draft. So we're looking at roughly $20 to $25 million in spending power for the Detroit Lions. And I mean, if we're looking at this team they have in place, the offensive line, bring back Evan Brown, the 5 you got, you're good to go. That's a good offensive line. It's one of the best in the NFL. You got Jared Goff coming back. Of course, his cap hit, I mean, it's huge, man. It's about $30 million, but he kind of proved himself last year. I think his cap hit for next season is only 25, so you got through the worst of his contract, and he's still playing probably his best football right now in his career. So that's good for Jared Goff. The backfield, you bring back Jamal Williams. That Williams-Swift is a nice 1-2 punch. And then you're talking about the receivers. You have, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, stud. Everyone knows, stud. And Jameson Williams, young, speed demon, rookie last year. We didn't really get to see that much of him because he was still rehabbing from the ACL injury he suffered in the college football playoffs for Alabama. But I think, him getting a full offseason with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and Jared Goff, I think he could be a real good player for them. And they got DJ Chark. I do not have them bringing him back. I have them letting him walk. And then they have Josh Reynolds, and he's a solid depth receiver that they can definitely rely on if they need to. Say Jameson Williams goes down, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, or even he's just that third guy in the room. Either way, I think they're in good shape on offense. The only hole that I saw when evaluating the offense was tight end. I do think they need to address that. And then defensively, their D-line is okay. They got some pieces, but they do need some interior help. Adam McNeil definitely took a step. I think this is his second year coming up, and I think he's a shoe-in starter. He's definitely going to play. And then you need some linebackers. Alex Anzalone, I had him leaving. They can bring him back relatively cheap, but personally, I think they should look for an upgrade at that position. Malcolm Rodriguez, he's a solid player. I envision him keeping a starting role going forward. And they do desperately need some secondary help. Jeff Okudah, I think you can roll with him. He's still on his rookie contract. He showed promise at times, especially in press man coverage. But Amari Omuwarie, he's definitely gone. He was the lowest graded PFF player on their defense, and I don't know how many times I turn on and watch a Lions game and it's him getting beat. I think they definitely need corner help on defense. I think they need linebacker help, and I do think they need interior D-line help. So you got a lot of holes you got to fill on the Detroit Lions defense. However, only got to find a tight end for that offense. It's in pretty good shape. You have anything to say about Detroit Lions so far, Christian, and the roster building they got going on?
I like, since Dan Campbell's got in there, really turned the Lions around. The whole curse since Calvin Johnson's been gone. I think Dan Campbell's kind of coming in here and showing that curse is no longer. I understand he's been trying, and the ownership's been trying to help Calvin Johnson, and they need to pay him his money still. But I think Dan Campbell, and the Lions, to me, without knowing what Aaron's doing, and I think this division, nothing against Kirk Cousins, but I think Dan Campbell and these guys, they pick up some of these guys that you're talking about and hitting on, they can take over that division.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Christian. I think they got a really strong foundation of good young players, and I do think there's good opportunity in free agency this year to really improve that defense. You look at their offense, fifth in total offense. That's great stuff from a young team. Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, he had an opportunity to leave to go get the head coaching job for Carolina. Apparently David Tepper was enamored with him, and they wanted him like nobody's business. He was a front runner for the job, and he just turned him down. And that says a lot. When an offensive coordinator has the potential to get a advancement position like a head coaching job or whatever, he turned it down just to stay in Detroit. And I think that says a lot about the foundation they got, the culture that Dan Campbell's brought into Detroit. And nice comparison I have is Patrick Graham in 2020 for the Miami Dolphins was the DC for Brian Flores, and he actually took a parallel move to go be the DC for the Giants. And we all know how the Brian Flores era ended in Miami. It went to crap. So seeing things like that say a lot about cultures and just the way organizations run. I mean, if guys are willing to stay there and not take a opportunity to advance, that says a lot. Coach Bevel for the Miami Dolphins also had an opportunity to leave and he stayed. I think that says a lot about McDaniel. So I'd really like Ben Johnson. I think he took over halfway through the year in 2021 for, what's his name? Old Chargers OC. Now he's in 49ers.
Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn. He took over for Anthony Lynn, and that offense never looked back. And I think they were 1-6 when he took over. But man, you gotta like where the offense is with Ben Johnson. I think next year he'll be a strong head coaching candidate again. However, some guys I have them targeting in free agency this year. I have them kind of doing some splash plays, and we didn't do this to the last dollar with the cap because we recognize teams can manipulate the cap to fit some players in that maybe that they didn't think, or on the outside looking in you wouldn't think they could sign. So I do have them kind of up against the cap with signing two quote unquote splash players. First one I have them signing is Rock Ya-Sin. Don't know if I said that right. But former Colts corner. He's a very good man press kind of guy. And I think if you want to get the most out of Jeff Okudah, you got to continue to run that press man. And I think he'd be a shoe-in fit for that defense. And I think you can get him for a relatively fair price. Spotrac had his market value listed at 4 years, $43 million. That's roughly 10 3/4 a year. So that's significant money, but I think you need those corners, especially since you're losing Will Harris and Amari Omunuwari. And then the other guy I got them targeting is Tremaine Edmonds. I think Tremaine Edmonds could be a great add to this Lions defense. I mean, I think you can bring Anzalone back, put him in middle linebacker spot, and then you can put Tremaine Edmonds off ball. And I mean, he can make plays. He's got so much range. He can play the middle. He can really do whatever they need. And I think he add another element to this defense. You know, Tremaine Edmonds has been a very versatile player in Buffalo for a long time, and I think having someone like that play on your second level could be huge for a team like Detroit. Some of the draft picks I have for the Detroit Lions, like, man, they got an opportunity to really improve this team this year. Tyree Wilson, defensive end for the Texas Tech Raiders. I think he's a great fit for them because, one, he's huge, man. 6'6", 275. He can play inside, outside. He's very versatile on the D-line. I think he's very on brand for a guy like Dan Campbell. He's physically he's going to punch you in the mouth. He's physically dominant. He's versatile, like I was saying. He can play up and down the line. There is some sort of a downside to him as a prospect, and he only ran like a 4.85 40. And so the question is, can he still threaten with speed on the edge at the NFL level? I don't know the answer to that, but I think he fits the profile that Dan Campbell's looking for in a player, and I think he can really improve that D-line and play a little bit all over the place, especially down in your third and long situations, reduce him inside, have him and Aiden Hutchinson run stunts. I mean, you could really get creative with a guy like this. And then their second pick in the first round, I think they could go two places here. I really like Darnell Washington from Georgia. I think if you want to be a Dan Campbell style team, you want to punch people in the mouth and get up and bite kneecaps and all that, I think you get a guy like that, you can really run the ball. Their offensive line is in place. We're talking about a 6'6", 265-pound behemoth of a tight end. I mean, you're almost having an extra offensive lineman when he's out there. And I think with Jamal Williams, you can get that power running game going. You can do a lot with a guy like that, especially Detroit. You know they want to run the football. And then this is kind of the big pick. Now, I don't know. Maybe they want to go with this player with their 18th pick and try to get Washington in the second round. But Anthony Richardson, Florida quarterback. I think with Jared Goff coming back this year, you can have Anthony Richardson sit behind him and really try to groom him as much as you can. He's not exactly a fit for what Jared Goff can do and what their offense will be catered for Goff, but just allowing him to sit because he's a raw player and kind of learn the offense, just kind of get some experience under his belt so that next year when Ben Johnson is likely gone for a head coaching position, you can insert him into the lineup. You can cut Jared Goff and you can save $27.7 million against the cap with only $5 million in dead cap. And I mean, it'll be Anthony Richardson, baby. I know a lot of Lions fans would invite that idea. I mean, you get that offensive line with Darnell Washington established with the running game, and you got these speed demons on the outside, and then Anthony Richardson's ability to run, scramble, and the dude's got a cannon. I mean, I'm sure this will be a heavy run offense with a heavy dose of play action passing, and I think that would be a good fit for him. I mean, that's kind of a quarterback friendly system, and you're going to have him running the ball on the ground. I think you do that, you free up $27.7 million, and you just luxury money, man. I mean, you could go crazy with that on the defense. I really like Anthony Richardson to the Detroit Lions. So, yeah, I'm thinking that the Detroit Lions have a good future. I think, they do some of these things. I think they're going to position themselves well going forward, and I'm really pulling for them. You have any last words for the Detroit Lions, Christian?
Kind of like you said, I believe you said they were the 5th overall offense this year, and I mean that was without their rookie Jameson Williams, and I think you get him back. I mean that's a fast guy. Jameson Williams can open stuff up. If Jared Goff is there, I think that'll help him definitely get that ball deep downfield or even quick with some of the slants Jameson Williams can run. I mean. 5th, I think they only improve. They do some of these moves you're saying and just keep running behind that offensive line. I think 5th is just the standard now. They go up.
What you think about Anthony Richardson?
I like Anthony Richardson a lot. I think, like you said, the cannon, definitely got the wheels. He can run around, and the offensive line's there. I mean, you do some quick read options with him, and that backfield they have there, Anthony Richardson, I mean, that's scary.
I mean, how do defenses defend that? I mean, Anthony Richardson can take off with his legs. You got Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. With that offensive line and those guys on the outside, yeah, I mean, if you want play a single high safety, go ahead. I wouldn't recommend it, but go ahead. Anyways, continuing on to the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I picked the Washington Commanders. I think there's a lot going on. I'm going to go ahead and, just tell you what kind of going on around Washington right now. A lot of people know about the ownership there. It's terrible. Supposedly, he's actually selling the team this offseason, but I mean, that's been a reoccurring thing. Hopefully it happens. I think the NFL and Rodgers really pushing him out at this point. So, I mean, once we get a new owner in Washington, we have, a great head coach, Ron Rivera, general managers, Martin Mayhew, defensive coach is Jack Del Rio. I mean, that's Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera both are been around the league for a while, know a lot. But, I mean, as GM, I just listed off the position we have. I didn't say nothing about an offensive coordinator. So, I mean, that's something I think Washington has to hunt for. Now, I think they need to get this offensive coordinator position figured out pretty soon because as we're going to get into talk, the quarterback situation here isn't the best, but they can make some moves and fix that up. I know Eric B's out there, but how much is that really him and not Andy Reid calling the plays? A lot of people think about that, but I looked into, some of the things they've been doing. Anthony Lynn was the guy they interviewed today, 49ers assistant, ex-Chargers head coach. We seen what the Chargers did when he was there. We had some hard moments on, just time-wise, we didn't understand what was going on, and he's supposed to be this offensive guy, but, we seen what Justin Herbert's have done without him since he's left, and I don't think it was anything he was doing. I think that's more just the talent of Justin Herbert helping him. And the 49ers, you go there as an assistant, how much are you helping that team? I mean, we've seen what they're doing this season. I mean, that team it's built. It's there. Then, we've Washington also interviewed Thomas Brown, tight end coach, and also assistant head coach of the Rams. I've looked into him. I really like this guy. He's been around Sean McVay for a while. Sean McVay's, to me, one of the smartest head coaches in the league at this time. They go on that Super Bowl run with Jared Goff, the Lions quarterback now. I think you learn a lot just being around Sean McVay, and him being the assistant head coach on that team says a lot to me. I understand he played college ball at South Carolina. Granted, that's him playing, not coaching, but got drafted in Atlanta, got hurt, career ended. He wanted to get into coaching. And I think the tight end problem Washington, I don't think Washington has ever had a standout tight end other than, who was it? A couple years ago, Washington had one good tight end.
A couple years ago?
Yes, a big guy, Vernon Davis.
Oh, yeah, Vernon
Davis.
Since
Vernon Davis, that tight end spot's been...
And that was later in his career, because his best days were in for San Francisco.
Yeah, since him, has Washington really had a tight end? And I think Thomas Brown's the guy for that job. Get a tight end coach and someone to call offensive plays. I think that can help them a lot. But I'm going to kind of hit on some of the things my host Brian hit on. Contracts, draft picks, cuts, free agents, kind of some things I would do. So like I hinted on at the beginning of when I started covering Washington, that quarterback room, a lot of it's gone. Taylor Heineke's free agent. Carson Wentz is owed, I think it's like $32 million, something like that. That's the first thing I'm doing when I walk in the door as general manager. I'm cutting Carson. We owe him nothing. And I think we've seen enough of Carson Wentz. I'm tired of hearing, well, the Eagles, his magic run. No, he got hurt. Nick Foles' magic run is what we need to be talking about. I think Carson, we've seen, the Colts, I don't want to go down that road. We've seen him now in Washington, and it's just the same story with Carson Wentz. I cut him, let him go. We lose nothing with letting him go. We're gaining money. So that frees up some of the cap. And then some of the other big contracts is Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver, Chase Ruler, center. I think, those guys you want to keep on this team. And then some of the other contracts, re-signing guys they need is Wes Schweitzer, I believe. I'm probably butchering his name, but his contract, this is his last year coming in, and their offensive line needs some help, but I think you have to keep some of the guys you got, so you're not just going to get whoever you want off the street. Some of these guys are going to have to resign. Deron Payne's a big guy. He's on his last deal, or last year of his deal. Then you have Cole Holcomb, or Hulk, is how you say it correct? Holcomb. And his contract's nothing crazy. That's one of those, like Brian was hitting on, some of these bottom tier guys, but I think it means a lot for this team to bring these guys back. Then you got Jeremy Reeves, Pro Bowl. The team loves them. They're going to bring them back. Big Ron Rivera Ron Rivera's big on this guy. The punter we seen cheering when he found out he was coming to the Pro Bowl. And then, some of the guys we definitely need to cut. Like I said, Carson Wentz, I don't need to talk anymore about Carson. He's done. If somebody picks him up, I don't know why. Another guy's Kendall Fuller. He's got $11 million on his contract. Dead cap's $3 million, but it saves us $8.5 million. The secondary in Washington is terrible. I couldn't tell you where they stand. I should have maybe looked into it more on their defensive standing, just secondary wise. But I know it's up there, like worse. And then another guy's Logan Thomas, tight end. His contract is $5 million, or no, it's $8.7 million. But Logan Thomas, he came to Washington. I was a believer. I thought he showed glimpses of what he could be. But, at this point, $8.7 million, you cut him, you save $5 million, and you only lose $3.7 million. I think you cut him, and there's better guys in free agency, which I'll hit on later. You'll hear a guy that I really like for them to get. And then some of their draft picks, they only have 2 first-round picks. I think that they can trade, and like Brian said, by the time the draft comes, they can move some stuff around and get more, but I'm going to just go off of what they have now. First-round pick, 16 pick, I picked two guys. Like I said, their secondary's bad. So I think they need help, and one of the guys I really like is Cam Smith out of South Carolina. We seen South Carolina kind of surprised, I think, a lot of people in college football, but Cam Smith was their number one corner. He was sticking all those good teams they were playing this year. He was their guy, sticking them and holding them down, and I really like him. And then, like I said, he's, to me, number one corner on the board, so will he be there at 16? I'm hoping so for Washington, but another guy is Joey Porter, cornerback at Penn State, big guy. I think 6'2". I mean, I understand height isn't everything, but
6'4".
Oh, 6'4", 6'4"
guy.
guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big guy, and they need the secondary help. I think you get him, a young guy. We've seen this year some of those young corners. I mean, we've seen Sauce. We've seen, who was it? The Houston's rookie. What was his name again?
Seattle's rookie?
No, Houston's.
Oh, you're talking about Derek Stingley.
Yeah, Derek Stingley. Then Woodley out of Seattle. We've seen these rookie corners are coming out kind of like these wide receivers are now this draft where they can hold their own ground. I mean, at the second round pick, it's pick 42 or 47. I apologize. I kind of got a wild one, but they don't have a third round pick. And I told you our whole quarterback problem. I got Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. Believe it or not, I got him as a steal in the draft. I understand he's coming back from an injury, but Tennessee's played the best football they played in a long time with him behind him. I think you bring him in to Washington, maybe not start. I think there's some quarterbacks in free agency you can maybe eyeball around and get one of them, and maybe we start Sam Howell. That's kind of scary when I go through some of the. I mean, they have it other than O-line. Brian Robinson, once he got, healed back up from after being shot, but we seen him show glances, and this wide receiver, I think they have a trio here in Washington. I really do. Terry McLaurin, I think he speaks for himself. That's a good guy right there. Curtis Samuel, you get a quarterback that can actually, throw the ball down there while he's running so fast. That opens a lot of things up. Then Jahan Dotson, he came on the scene when he was actually healthy. I think he had some big catches that helped Terry McLaurin get open. And Jahan Dotson, I think he could fight for that number one spot with Scary Terry, but
dude catches everything. Jahan Dotson catches everything.
Those jump balls in the end zone this year, he just came down with them. You're like, how? But that wide receiver trio there is good. That's why I think you can get away with getting maybe a Hendon Hooker and let those wide receivers help him. Get there in Washington and develop a little bit. But some of the free agents I would like to see them pick up is you have to bring Deron Payne back for that defensive line. Chase Young, health is up and down. Jonathan Allen's there. Their D-line, when it's healthy, it's up there. I think that's one of the best D-lines.
Montez Sweat.
Yeah, Sweat on the other side. That's a banging defensive line right there in Washington. Now, I think, who else? Mike Gesicki at tight end. Like I said, you bring in Thomas Brown, tight end coach. Maybe you can help Mike block a little bit, but I think you bring in a young quarterback, you bring Mike in, that helps your quarterback grow even more, and that helps them trio wide receivers I just hit on. Mike Gesicki, I understand Miami, he's not a seam fit. They run the ball, they need blockers, they do the RPOs. Yeah, I think Mike just wasn't the fit there. And another guy I got on the list is Bobby Oroko, Colts. I think you can maybe get away with giving him a 3-year, $12 million deal. He was pretty good this year for the Colts without Shaq or
Darius Leonard.
Yeah, whatever he wants to go by. But once he gets healthy, I'll call him his name. Azir Al-Sharif. I know I'm butchering his name. Azir San Fran linebacker. He's pretty good. I think Ron Rivera's head coach, they have to get back to his roots when he was in Carolina. Those defensive-led teams he had, I understand it's Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis. They have to go find someone to help them linebackers and get Ron Rivera how he wants to run games and back to his bread and butter. So, after they cut Carson Wentz, I think it's $32 million free in cap. You bring back Deron Payne, I understand that's going to cut a lot of it, but it'll help the team a lot just cutting Carson Wentz, freeing up that cap space, and getting secondary help, offensive line. and find Logan Thomas replacement, I think this team has a good chance in that division. I understand the Giants look good this year. Dallas, I'm not a big fan because their fan base don't help them any. But Dallas, Dak Prescott's just inconsistent at times. I think Washington has a good chance to maybe build this defense up. I mean, this year they were in the hunt till the end, and that's with Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz, and Sam Howell at quarterback. So imagine they get a true number one guy in there. I mean, I'd take this team to the playoffs and maybe win that division. It's going to be tough, but get that second spot. Washington has a chance adding some of these guys that I'm hitting on. Another offensive line guy is, let me look real quick, Caleb McGray, Atlanta. I believe he's going to be a free agent. That's just a guy they maybe can go out there and sign to help that offensive line. And that'll help this quarterback or free agent quarterback they bring in. Brian, you think I'm missing anything on the Washington Commanders?
I think you hit on a lot of really good stuff there. I think offensively, finding that quarterback's the number one priority going into the offseason. I'm really not sure which direction they'll go. But, I mean, they got Sam Howell. It sounds like at least someone in the building believes in them. Getting another guy just to compete with him, Hendon Hooker could be that guy. I think, like you were saying, Tennessee, they haven't been this competitive in who knows how long. And really, it was up into that Georgia game. It looked like who's going to beat Tennessee. And then, he went down and, prayers up. Hopefully his recovery is going well. But other than the quarterback position, I think bringing in Mike Gesicki could be a good fit for him, potentially, depending on what they want to do with their new OC. I know last year they were more of a run-heavy team, and Ron Rivera being a run-heavy coach, maybe they stick with that, maybe they don't. I know later in the season they were complaining about the play calling and play selection. I think they were running the ball 2-to-1 pass, or run to pass. And I do think if you bring in a guy like Mike, you would be deciding to throw the ball more often. But I think, dude, I don't think there's many tight ends better in the league that can run the seam route. He's a seam buster. You could really have to account for him on each and every play. He's got a giant catch radius, and he can bring down any ball in his vicinity. And I really like Mike. I wish it would have worked out for him in Miami. But going forward, I think him and Washington would be great. Defensively, I think you got to bring Deron Payne back at all costs, because that D-line, you got that in place. You might have the best D-line in the entire league. Really, I think you can dominate teams with that D-line. And getting some other guys in the secondary, you can really marry up the coverage with the pass rush. And really, that defense could be deadly. But do you have any last words, Christian?
Not kind of like you just hit on that D-line and that division. You have Barkley, you have Zeke. They have to have a good line to stop them runs. That division, that's...
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. You have to be able to stop that run. Other than that, I think that's really all I got to add on them.
All right, well, we said it first. Commanders, Lions, playoff teams in 2023? We think so. Anyways, that concludes today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed, and you guys have a great day, and return to the podcast, Hot Route Takes.